Good morning, members of the media. Thank you for coming. Recently, there have been a focus on the announcement by an air carrier that they will not be servicing the Boston route for the winter. I know that many of our residents depend on this route for business and personal reasons. Not having this nonstop service will inconvenience many, especially those who frequent the area for access to medical treatment and universities. Since the early 90s, every airline that has provided year-round service to the island has received either a marketing incentive and/or a minimum revenue guarantee, otherwise known as an MRG, from the government at some point in their lifespan. The positive aspect of an MRG is that Bermuda gets continued air service. However, the downside is that an MRG disguises or artificially inflates the strength of the market on its own. It goes without saying that with COVID, it has negatively impacted governments and airlines alike in their ability to generate and sustain revenue. This means that the air service provider will have to rely on unsubsidized revenue, and in this case, the Boston market, the current demand or lack thereof is not seen as financially feasible by the airline between November 2021 and February 2022. In 2019, prior to COVID, airlines had the economic and financial ability to weather or shoulder our shoulder seasons. However, in 2021, they are looking at every opportunity to generate as much revenue as possible. So instead of losing money on the Bermuda route, they look to allocate their resources to more profitable destinations. It is anticipated that the Boston route will return with nonstop service as early as March of 2022. In the meanwhile, connectivity is available to Boston through our other gateway cities. As stated in the beginning, I sincerely and wholeheartedly empathize with those persons and passengers that rely on the nonstop service to get to Boston and that will be inconvenienced with this nonstop service no longer being available. However, I am encouraged with the progress that the Air Service Development Team, led by the Bermuda Airport Authority under the leadership of MP Lovitta Foggo, chairperson, who I now invite to give an update and overview on progress that is being made in this aspect. Chairperson Foggo.
Thank you, Minister, and good day to everyone. I would like to say that the Bermuda Air Service Development Team at the Bermuda Airport Authority is steeped in making sure that they do research to try and create even further air service routes. I want to say this, that they're doing a fabulous job. We already have seen increases in our flights to London. We have flights to Philadelphia through American Airlines. We saw recently flights going to the Azores, and that proves to be quite promising. And we are well versed in ensuring that we look at as many different avenues as we can to try and increase flights coming to and leaving Bermuda. The Air Service Development Team is doing a stellar job, and I can say that while I can't commit to giving you specific details, things are looking very promising in terms of increasing flights. And I can say that as time has gone on, we have seen increased flights from one month to the next. And things are trending that way, and we anticipate that that trend will continue. Thank you. Minister.
Members of the media, that concludes statements. Does anyone have any questions? I'd ask that you come to the. Thank you. Jonathan Bell, Royal Gazette.
Morning, and thanks for having us. Yes, I did get a couple of queries. I'm not much of a traveler myself, but when the Boston route was highlighted to me, and I wrote about it, so was the situation was that there was an MRG being paid for that route, and we stopped paying it, or that the JetBlue wanted an MRG this time around, and we weren't able to
No.
do that?
In the past, there was no MRG on the route in recent times. In the past, there have been MRGs, but what has happened now is that the route itself has to be sustained based off of its organic demand, meaning the actual demand by the passengers that are traveling without marketing or financial support. And so what we're starting to see now is that given that COVID has hit the entire globe hard, airlines were hit financially where they are no longer to operate under their traditional business model, which means that the profits that we're seeing during the peak season help offset any or all losses during the off season. They are no longer able to sustain that business model, so they are adjusting according to the times and allocating that equipment to other more profitable routes.
I know that the government keeps its cards pretty close to its chest in terms of MRGs. Is there any indication of what the amount was that JetBlue wanted to keep that service going?
Now, see, the thing is, there was no amount discussed.
Okay.
The way that the industry is going now is that an MRG would not be based off of the money needed to allow them to break even. It would be what's called the opportunity cost that they would be looking for, meaning how much revenue could they generate on other more profitable routes, and that is what the government would have been entitled to or asked to put forth. And that is something that could see the government paying 4 times the amount of what we would have had to, what the route itself could generate in revenue.
Thanks. After I did the story about the Boston route, there were a number of business folks that got in touch with me saying that just our general service to the Northeast was not looking good over the winter. If I remember correctly, flights to New York had been reduced. There wasn't a Saturday flight. There was basically the folks that got in touch with me were saying this was going to have a negative impact on business travel to the island. Is that your assessment of the situation? Like I say, I'm not much of a traveler, but
No, I don't. I cannot agree with those statements. The reason why I can't is because this is not the first year. This is what air service industry in Bermuda is traditionally. From Bermuda Day to Labor Day, we have high frequency. After Labor Day, when schools go back in, airlines reduce their frequency. There's no difference this year than previous years, with the exception of Boston not being serviced directly at all. But the airlines have increased their connectivity through gateway cities to Boston to help offset the loss of the direct flight.
got
And
it.
I think it just to keep in mind that this is and starting in November and coming back in March. So it is relatively only 3 months
Yeah.
in which we have no direct service.
There's, I guess, a possibility was hinted at that we might be able to get an alternative carrier or get that service back, or
And that is what the Air Service Development Team is
Yes.
looking at right now, looking at all options. So therefore, what we had was 2 options on the table. One has been taken off. The 2 options, one option was the financial aspect, meaning pay for an MRG, which neither the government could afford, nor do the airlines want to enter into such an agreement, as it artificially inflates the demand. Then now there's the strategic option, which allows for creativity in finding new ways and means in providing a more robust service on a sustainable and consistent basis.
Got it, thanks. I just had one last question from one of my colleagues. So we had the Carnival Legend was going to be coming, I believe, over the off-season. At any rate, there's the Carnival Legend has pulled out over, I guess, COVID testing restrictions that they weren't happy about. We wanted to know if you know what specifically Carnival Legend was unhappy about and what the impact is likely to be on the 2022 season.
So our testing requirements are put in place to protect the country and our population. And as we have had robust conversations with the cruise lines in the past, especially last year, they are well aware of what our testing regime is. Any cruise line that is not willing and or able to meet that bar, to meet those testing requirements, will not be allowed to service the island. However, with that said, with the numbers that we are looking at now, we are anticipating a very close to normal cruise ship season in 2022.
Righto. Was there anything specific that was the deal breaker for Carnival Legend, or?
It would be inappropriate for me to talk about the specifics.
Got it. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Morning, Minister. I was going to ask you about the likelihood of government talking to another airline to step in, but I believe you've already answered that as much as you are willing to go on that. In any event, I'll ask, just how worried are you that would-be visitors to the island in Boston, in the Boston area, who would be only interested in a direct flight to Bermuda, might say, you know what, I'll just go somewhere else because I don't want to take a connecting flight to get to Bermuda?
I'm not worried because the fact that this is seasonal and this is actually traditional. It has only been recently that Boston has been staying on throughout the shorter months. And so this is actually just a return to how things used to be. The saying is the more things change, the more they stay the same. That's where we are now. But this is why the Air Service Development Team is looking at all creative and strategic options that are available to the country. And I am very encouraged with the product and the options and the solutions that they are coming up with and presenting and proposing for moving forward.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Trot. With no other questions, that concludes our press conference. Thank you, Minister Scott, and thank you, MP.